Alrighty, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. So excited to have you all here for Flows 101. We're finally doing our first official live training on flows. So thank you for being here. I see people are still kind of filing in, which is totally fine. I'm going to go through a couple just quick housekeeping items, which I also put there in the chat for y'all. Before we get started while people still make their way here. So first off, if you have any audio or visual issues throughout today's time, feel free to just refresh the page. That will go ahead and resolve that problem. And when you do that, you might need to find the play button or the unmute button, which will be located in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And then the other bit here, which is usually one of my biggest webinar questions is this going to be recorded? Yes, we are recording right now. I will send everyone who registered for today's webinar the link to it afterwards. So if you have to jump off early or if the kids are being crazy in the background or whatever's going on, don't worry about it. You'll be able to come back and watch the recording at any time. So that's something to look forward to. Feel free to hop into that chat and let me know how you're feeling today. Let me know what you're hoping to get out of today's session. Right off the bat, I would love to know specifically who is here right now who has already had the chance to send a flow. So just a simple yes or no. Have you sent a flow yet? And that'll help me kind of gauge where everyone is standing, how everyone's feeling with it. And where people are at. Awesome. Good. I'm crossing my fingers that there are mixed responses because I'm going to try to keep things general. So don't be shy if your answer is no. That's mostly what I'm expecting. So don't worry. Oh, hi, Dahlia. Awesome. Cool. Familiar faces in here. I love it. So yeah, feel free to use that chat. I'm going to go through kind of the agenda with you guys so you're familiar on what we're going to cover today too. Awesome. So let's go ahead and dive through our agenda. So right off the bat, we are going to be going through the intro to the builder. So what does your template section look like today versus what it looked like with your legacy files, how you should be approaching the builder. So maybe you've had the chance to come into Flows and work in the builder a little bit, but you haven't had the chance to actually send one yet. So I'm going to go through the process of actually building out a flow, how you should be approaching that, and how you can kind of make sure that you're choosing the right content blocks to include there based on maybe like the legacy file you're trying to duplicate or replicate in there, and just all those kind of different decisions you'll be making as you're building out a new flow, and just some general rules of thumb there. Obviously, there's a little bit of a learning curve. It's a new system. And as the product exists today, it's constantly changing, right? That's the nature of a beta, which, by the way, you guys, thank you for being a part of this. I know sometimes we're throwing some new things in your account. I saw, I think Joaquin is their name, was asking some questions about how to get back to their old legacy files. And so I just want to quickly address the elephant in the room, I guess. Thank you so much for being a part of this beta group. We so appreciate it. And your guys' feedback is having a direct impact on how the product is going to look for years to come. So we really, really appreciate it, and all of your feedback along the way. So that's off the plate there. Let's keep going. So then we're going to go through how to actually send a flow. So we're going to talk through all the nuances of building a flow out, and then what that looks like when you go to send it with a client, how that works in the project workspace. And we'll even address Joaquin's question about where to find your legacy files if you're in part of our flip group. So I'll be showing you more information on that. And then the last little bit is we're going to open it up to questions. So the last 15 minutes will be a split between me giving you guys a long-awaited preview of the service block that is coming so soon. It's actually going to be live in the demo account that I'm showing you guys today, but I'm not going to show it to you there. I'm just going to show you some screenshots so we can kind of pick and choose exactly what we want to show, because it's in like the most beta it could be right now, but it's coming in the fall, so look forward to it there. And then, of course, we'll be opening it up to questions. So if you guys have any questions, usually for my webinars, I recommend reserving questions for like the last 20 minutes. That way, if I'm already planning to cover something, odds are I've already covered it and your question would be like most relevant at that time in the webinar. But if you have any questions, feel free to chat them in throughout the webinar, and then I'll be going back through the chat in the last 10 minutes, scrolling through and answering them in a live demo situation. Okay, so that's our agenda this morning. Time for me to introduce myself if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting before. If you haven't attended one of my webinars, my name is Mac. I've been a HoneyBook employee since 2017, and I said this in a couple webinars for Flows in the past, but I am learning Flows right alongside you guys. Obviously, things are changing day by day. You might have noticed some changes even in your account today, which I'll be highlighting as well. So things are changing all the time. I'm learning right along there with you guys. So that is to say, have a little grace. I might not have all of the perfect answers, but I'll definitely make sure that you guys leave feeling confident for what I do know. And that's kind of my whole little intro. So let's go ahead and jump in. So first off, we're going to start in the builder, right? So when you're going to your template section, things are going to be looking a little different. And I want to put a disclaimer out there too. Basically, the beta group right now is split in half, with some beta users having a slightly different experience than others while we're testing some things out. So the Flows experience might look slightly different in your account in regards to some of you will have folders and some of you will not. And then some of you in the project workspace will have a little bit of a create new experience when you're going to share a flow or a file with clients. So I'll be sure to kind of flag those moments where it might look a little different in your account, depending on what half of the beta group you're in, essentially. So some of you will have the option to have folders in your account. Some of you will have this view, and some of you won't have the folders option. But again, it is our goal to have that cohesive experience once we're down the road. So something to look forward to there if you don't have it right now. So right off the bat, when we are figuring out flows, we've made it hopefully easy on you guys in terms of using flows for your existing process in HoneyBook, because we've migrated all of your legacy files into flows for you. So right away, if you haven't had the chance, when you get into your flows section, you should see the same kind of file names as your flows. So just to clarify, again, I'm not sure where everyone stands on flows, but essentially what we're talking about here is flows is like all of the files you have access to in HoneyBook combined into one document. So all of the abilities that you have in invoicing, in contracting, in asking questions, in displaying images, displaying text, all of those options can be combined into one document now with flows. And ultimately down the road, I know I was teasing a little bit to service block that's coming soon. So that'll be more like where the brochure files start to come into play. So all of those files are basically now combined into one cohesive document where you can do all of those things in one place. So that's why all of the functionality that exists in Flows today in regards to questions, those content blocks, contracting and invoicing. So all of your proposals, contracts, invoices, and questionnaires have all been transitioned into Flow documents for you now. With the exception of contracts. Contracts are not actually flows as it exists right now. They're actually a content block, which I'll show you in a couple of seconds. So if you're missing your contracts, you're not, they just live inside of a flow. So you have to click into a flow, add a contract block, and then you'll have your contract template options available. So I'll show you where to do that too. But in terms of, so your previous HoneyBook experience, we're now calling that legacy files. So that all lives over here under your legacy files header. And this is where you can basically refresh your memory when you leave the webinar today and you're like, what was Max saying about the different features that we have available in Flows? The legacy files are basically the features that are available in Flows now. And we're calling them legacy files because they're essentially like the older version of HoneyBook at this point, because you can now do like everything you can do in these files, but better in Flows. So that's why we've converted these to now be called legacy files. So you do have access to them here. If you wanted to go in and pull content into, say, a new flow that you're building or something, you will have the option to do that in most content blocks. But if you wanted to be able to review your old files, this is where they would live. And then under My Templates is where you'll be able to view all of your flows and all of the transitioned flows that we built for you, because we migrated all of that information in there. Okay, so using those migrated files as a jumping off point is a really great place to start. There's kind of 3 different ways that you can approach flows, in my opinion. And that is just doing essentially exactly what you do today or what you did with your legacy files, but doing it in flows so that you have more customization. So kind of doing that like bare minimum of what's my existing process and how do I do that in flows, right? We're just kind of getting our feet under us, understanding this new system. The next step you can take is doing what you're doing today, but maybe level it up slightly. Maybe add an image where you couldn't before. Maybe add a little bit of text where you couldn't before. A lot of the files in HoneyBook have a very rigid format that doesn't allow for much customization. And with flows, you can even get down to like customizing the radius of the button that your client is clicking. So you can go super advanced on it if you want, but we're talking somewhere right in the middle of doing what you do today, way advanced. We're talking somewhere in the middle of just adding a little oomph to what you're doing today to make it a little bit snazzier, a little bit of a better client experience, maybe using that opportunity to set clear expectations with your clients where you maybe couldn't before in an invoice or a proposal file, things like that. So my hope is that you leave here today feeling confident doing somewhere in that middle ground where you know how to do what you need kind of in today's world, but you also maybe want to level things up a little bit, add some branding, change some background colors, and get a little bit more customized in your experience and your client experience. So that's my hope. So let's get into what it's like to actually go through with building a flow, because I want to show you guys what it's like to start with the migrated files that we've built out for you. You can even start off with this template gallery, which is really incredible, as a good jumping off point as well. And I want to show you guys how to add those contract blocks when you need to also, because that's a really hot question that we get a lot is like, okay, you migrated my files, but where are all my contracts? So I want to make sure to highlight that too. So really quick, your migrated files are a great jumping off point, but also, like I mentioned, this template gallery is a really fabulous place to start as well. So if you're looking for inspiration, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I really recommend coming in here because we've had some incredible resources for you guys built out where you can go for inspiration. You can even preview these files, save them and customize them on your own to make them more branded for your business. But these are really great examples to look into if you're looking for a source of inspiration or if you're wanting a jumping off point that's a little bit different than the migrated files that we built in for you. So definitely recommend checking this out. If you're needing that, we have them broken down into basically like document types or file types over here. So if you wanted to look at like the brochure examples or mood boards or proofing documents, questionnaire documents. So if you're looking at your migrated questionnaire and you're wanting to kind of combine the data or the content there with maybe a more heavily branded, beautiful template like this, you can come in here and create that really easily. So definitely recommend checking that out if you're looking for some inspiration. Otherwise, it's totally fine just to click into one of the migrated files that we brought over for you. So let's hop into one of these guys and start building it out. Okay, so let's say this is our kind of general questionnaire that the HoneyBook team migrated over for you. So you get in here, all your same content is here, but it's still looking pretty plain. You could totally send this out to your clients, no problem. But this is where I want to kind of encourage you guys to maybe level things up a little bit and we'll just call it jazzing up your existing kind of legacy file now that you have it as a flow. Okay, so you've got all your same questions in here. I'm just going to scroll slowly so you can see how things change when I hover my mouse over it. This is kind of a general rule of thumb in HoneyBook, so this shouldn't be like rocket science for most of you guys. When you're hovering your mouse over it, you have the ability to edit. You can click in, and then when I click in, I get new options over here in this right-hand settings bar. So this is a rule of thumb across flows that is a little bit different from your files experience today. Anytime you click into anything, whether it be a specific question block or a full, composition, or any of these things are going to have their own kind of settings area on the right-hand side, depending on what you're clicking into. So just when in doubt, keep your eye on this right-hand side of the screen, because this is what's going to show you your options essentially. So we can add information here. So let's say we wanted to jazz this up a little bit. The first easiest way to jazz it up, I would say, is with this company theme up here. So if you haven't had the time to explore Flows much yet, this theme button is going to be a huge help, because this is essentially where you decide the theme of your flow. So you can decide what the background color is going to be. So let's say we want to go with our brand color of this brown, but we're going to go a little bit on the lighter side so that things look a little bit easier to read. And I'm going to say that looks good. So it even shows you the brand or like the color code. So if you wanted to pull this in later on to other documents, you can always come back here and just like copy that color code to use later on. But I'm going to say this looks good now, and I'm going to hit save. And this will actually go ahead and apply it right away to my document. So right away, we've jazzed this up and made this, standard kind of in the normal questionnaire, or even in a brochure when you add questions, the background color is always white. So I know it's not a big change. Ronalyn is on my same page. She's excited about being able to customize and change the colors. So this is a really quick, easy way to just level up your existing process with HoneyBook, right? So we've added the content in for you, but now you're able to just make it a little bit more branded, give your clients a little bit of a better experience, a little bit more branded experience. Okay, and as we're scrolling here, maybe we want to actually add in some additional content. So if anytime we're inside of a flow, we'll notice these plus buttons come up. So when the plus buttons come up, we can add a block, and then you'll see your options of the blocks you have available. So as I mentioned too, just really quick tangent, I am going to be previewing the service feature that's coming soon later at the end of the webinar. So stay tuned for that. But this is essentially what it would look like when you go to add it into a flow. It's very straightforward. If you've used flows before, anytime you want to add content, whether it be contract, invoice, the service blocks, any content you want to add, when you go to add a block, you'll see the full list of options here. And once services are added, you'll be able to see them here as well. Okay, so let's say we wanted to add a composition. Basically, compositions in flows are defined as like pre-formatted ways of including text and images inside of the file. Of course, you can include just text or just images, but a composition is going to give you pre-formatted options here on the right-hand side so that you're not quite as overwhelmed. I find when I add just a text box to a flow, I'm feeling a little like there's too many options and I'm just a little overwhelmed. So I think if you're just getting familiar with flows, the best option is always to add a composition and then customizing from there, because it'll make things a little bit more clear for you. So let's say we want to have a header image and we want to have a title or something like that. So now I can click into this image and it'll give me the option to upload. So let's say I want to add a little greenery here and I want to crop this a little bit differently. So I'm going to go with something like this, or I can do a custom crop where I make it just a little bit more skinny up there at the top, and that'll change in the composition. And you can change the alignment, all of these different things. So I'm going to keep this as a center alignment. And now, so you can see it always shows you highlighted around the area that you're editing, and that is what the composition or the settings bar over here on the right hand side is informing. So if we wanted this to be, maybe we wanted a lot of padding between the content above and the content below, we can change that. We can do custom, we can do large, medium, small, basically, and that you can see how that changes things. Maybe I want the content to be really wide across the screen, more like the header images on your like legacy files. You could do something like that. And then maybe I actually decide that I want to get rid of this text. So I just want the header image. Now that I've chosen this composition, maybe I'm changing my mind a little bit. So that's why I always say starting with the compositions is a little bit easier, because it just gives you a better visual jumping off point than it just being like a plain text area that you have to decide what you want to do in. So we can go ahead and click in. It'll always give us the option to delete things. You can delete the padding that we just added. So whatever you want to do, you can customize that. So it's very customizable, as you guys can see. So I'm going to say this is looking pretty good. I already have my kind of jazzed up questionnaire here. But let's say now I'm going to go through kind of like the more advanced option, right? So like I said, there's kind of 3 options when you're approaching flows: doing the bare minimum, exactly what you're doing today, but doing it as a flow instead of a file; leveling up slightly, which we would probably stop here. And then there's kind of a more advanced version where you're really kind of sitting down and rethinking your process. So when you send this questionnaire normally, what else do you do? Are you setting next steps for them in an email? Could those next steps maybe be better articulated in this flow? Would you be actually sending a contract on the same day? And in current day HoneyBook files, you can't combine those steps. So actually you can in flows now. So you would want to actually add a contract at some point in here. So there's a lot of options. And when you're getting on that more advanced side, it's really more about sitting down and thinking through your process. Like, what do you do right before this file, and what do you do right after, and thinking about how you can combine that now that you have the flexibility and customization of flows. So I want to show you guys what that might look like. So you could add another block to the same page, or you could add an additional page. So let's say we did want to actually add maybe like a contract and invoice component to this flow, because that's something you can't do today with legacy files. You cannot combine a questionnaire and a contract and an invoice all into one file. So let's do that, because that's pretty exciting. So let's say I'm going to add a page, and this is going to be my contract. And then I'm going to add a page, an invoice. And I want these to be before the thank you page. So I'm going to drag and drop. Again, pretty standard HoneyBook stuff there. If you've ever drag and dropped in the program before, it's working the same in flows. So on the contract page, it's already brought up my block options. So I'm going to go ahead and select from my actions the contract. And right away, it's prompting me to pull in my contract templates from the right-hand menu. So this is where all of your migrated contract templates live. Like I mentioned, the contract templates are not set up as flows right now in your account. Questionnaires, proposals, invoices, all of those are transition, but the contracts only live inside of content block or action blocks. So this is where you can access them. You would go to create a flow, you would add a contract, and then you would get this screen here, and you could easily pull in your contract template, and then you're good to go. Okay, this is the same for if you wanted to, for example, edit your contract. So if you needed to make changes for like 2022 or whatever year is next year, I can't even believe we're at the end of this year. If you needed to make adjustments to it, you would come into the contract block. You would make any adjustments. So let's say we want to remove the company address field. And now it's giving us the option. If we back out just one page, we can either save this as a new contract template, or we can update the old one. So if you need to make updates to existing contract legacy files, don't actually do it in the legacy files, because that won't migrate into the Flows option. So if you want to be able to use it going forward, you'll want to update it in the Flows action block itself, and then either hit the save as new and give it a new title. So maybe you would do 2022 contract agreement, or you would just hit update and do it that way. Okay. So very straightforward. It looks the same as your contract templates would in the normal legacy files. It's just now that it's in Flows, you have a little bit more customization again in terms of, you know, the padding before and the background colors and all of those things. You can really adjust the options here. You could even change the template out if you wanted to use a different one. And then we'll go ahead and add our invoice. My computer sounds like an airplane about to take off, you guys. It's struggling. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in our invoice. So we're going to add in the invoice action block. And this will basically pull up, again, the option to pull in invoice templates that we've migrated over for you. But if you just wanted to start from blank, it's still going to give you a very good format here for what you're familiar with in the invoice template today. There's just a lot more customization here. So if you're sending out bookable files with the legacy files today, I really want to encourage you guys to just try a flow as a bookable file instead, just to give it a shot, because there is tons of options in terms of the content that's here. So you can have the bill to information update based off of the client's information. You could put the invoice number. So again, we're in the master template section. So it's not auto-populating right now because we're not inside of a contract. That's the same as how HoneyBook works with the normal legacy files. So nothing new there, but this would auto-populate with the client's information once you're pulling it into a project. Other things that we have options to do once we click into, so you'll notice the column header. Now I have the option to click in here, and this will change the settings menu, and I can now say I want to remove images. I want to remove the unit price. I want to add multiple tax columns. You can do that. You can change it to your theme color. There's so much customization here. So just poke around. I really want to encourage you guys to do this next time you have to send a bookable file. It works very similar to how your legacy files work today. It's just giving you a lot more customization. So if you're someone who's been, you know, adjusted to the kind of rigid format of the normal files in HoneyBook, Flows is going to give you a ton of options in terms of presenting your brand and putting your best foot forward with your clients. So if that's been something that you're dying for, Flows is really going to answer to that for you. So I really want to encourage you guys to check it out. It works really, really similar to how HoneyBook files work today. You know, the customization piece is where you might have a little bit of learning curve. Like, honestly, I didn't even know you could change this banner color to be the theme color. I just found that out by clicking around. But when it comes to the kind of core features of like adding a package to an invoice, for example, this looks nearly identical to how your invoice file or proposal file works today. So there shouldn't be any surprises when you're going to do something like that. I'm just going to leave a little placeholder here for myself. So when I go to send this later on, I know to add content there. Same thing with the payment schedules. When in doubt, if your settings bar over here doesn't look the way you want it to, or you're trying to get back to something, there's always the left-hand corner of the menu, and that'll take you back to your pages view. So if you need to get back to your contract, or you want to go to the payment page or anything like that, you can always back out of it from there. So I think our contract was looking good. The invoice part looks good to me. Anytime you add an invoice block, it's always going to add a payment page separately, because obviously that's how it needs to work. If your clients have an invoice, they're always going to have the option to pay. So we'll add that in for you. So there's no margin for error. You're not going to mess that up and forget to add the payment. But this is great because you can always click into this content block, and then you'll have the option to adjust their options over here. Joaquin, this was actually one of the questions that you had, which is kind of a general HoneyBook question, but it applies to Flows as well. If you want to basically force your clients into an auto pay agreement with you, this is where you would control that. So similar to an invoice or proposal file, where the menu is actually over here on the left-hand side before you send it out. Now it's just going to be on the right-hand side, and it's on the payment page specifically rather than like the page as a whole. So you need to be on the payment page. You need to click into the content block, and then this option will pull up in the settings, and you can require to auto pay right here. And this will just make sure that your client has to agree to auto pay before they can actually hit that pay button with you. And my other suggestion was maybe just to include some language about this requirement in your contract too, so your clients have a clear expectation of what you need to do with them. Okay, so I think that's kind of a good rundown on how you could really sit down and rethink your process and go through and build out a new flow. Even on this payment page, you could add company info or other things. On this invoice page, maybe you actually want to add like a content block at the beginning where you have another composition where maybe it's just a bunch of text with a beautiful background image kind of explaining what it's like to do business with you. There are tons of options here in terms of beautifully presenting information to your clients. So don't be shy to kind of poke through and mess around a little bit. Maybe even create like a junky example flow in your account where you just go to test things like crazy. That's totally a good option too. You could even use one of the templates from the template gallery to start doing that in. Another option for you. So I'm going to update this template before I back out. That way the changes that I made get saved here. There is an undo button there too. So if you make a mistake and you want to undo and revert back, you can do it up there. But let's hop back for a second. So even if you wanted to start from one of the migrated files that we built for you, but you're feeling a little hesitant about like messing things up, you can always duplicate files. So I always recommend doing that. I'm saying files, but obviously I'm talking about flows. I'm living in 3 different worlds over here with all these product changes, you guys. Bear with me. But if you needed to work off of anything and you were worried about messing something up, duplicating a file or a flow, whatever system you're in, is always a good option, because that way you'll always have kind of the version 1 of what you did. You could always go back and delete the version 1 later on if you decide that your duplicated version actually ends up being better, but at least that way you have a version of it that you know you can always go back to. So duplicating a file is always a good option too. And then if you do have folders, definitely take advantage of those. Like I said, about half of you here today should have folders and half of you won't. But if you do have them, don't be shy to use them. It's a great way to organize all of these documents. Obviously, Flows has a ton of capability. It's not just one rigid format anymore. So folders is a great way to help you stay organized now that everything is kind of in one place. Okay, moving on to our next portion where I want to go through actually sending out a flow and showing you guys what that experience is like. So let's hop into a project. And like I said, this is another area where half of you will have one experience and half of you will have another. So your create new experience might be a little different than what you're seeing in my account. So I'll just explain what those options are. So for some of you, the create new experience will be flows and then show you contract flow, invoice flow, proposal flow, questionnaire flow, and then your old files, your legacy files live down here. So if you wanted to use those instead because you don't have time or whatever, that's where you could do that. But the other half of you will have your legacy files, but you'll also see a flows icon in here. And when you choose flows, that'll take you into the same spot that all of these other people go. So it's the same experience once you click into a flow. It's just that some of you will only have the option to send flows unless you click into the old builder or the legacy files. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead and send off a proposal file, because I think this is one of those, or proposal flow rather. You guys are going to have to bear with me with all these names. I'm switching back and forth. I want to send a proposal flow today because I think it's one of those legacy files that probably a lot of people use. And when it comes to sending a flow, it can feel like it's a little bit challenging. So I just want to show you how easy it could be, so long as you have the master templates section set up appropriately with like the right placeholders and things for yourself. So when we go to send a proposal, some of you might start from blank right now, which is totally fine. I'm going to start from a template because I actually have a template already set up where I have my contract and invoice and all of my branding elements. So if you start from blank, usually you might want to consider creating kind of a proposal flow template for yourself where you have more of those branding elements already included, and that way you're not having to start from scratch adding background colors and logos and text every time. You'll see what I mean once I click into this example. So right away, I already have my logo and company details at the top. I've got my background color. So it's already kind of set up in the way that I want it to be set up visually. And the content is still blank. Like I still have the option to customize this invoice for this specific client. I still have the contract to go through and fill out. I still have the payment settings to adjust and so on. But because I've built this flow template already for proposals in the master template section, I already have these branding elements included. So I've leveled up my client experience a little bit by doing that. So I would recommend doing that if you're someone who's used to starting from blank with proposal today. That's probably a good option just to get you kind of more to that middle ground where I'm hoping you'll leave today. And it's super quick and easy to set this up. Okay, so let's say it's time to bill a client. So I'm going to pop in here and hop into my packages. And let's say this client is going to get my peak services package. Once it loads in here for me, there we go. And maybe I want to remove the image again because I don't have images here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that out. I think I can actually, yeah. From here, again, I can change the quantity, the price, the unit. So make sure that things look good. You know, if the quantity doesn't matter because this is my one package, I can remove those things. I can remove unit. So it's really clean looking for my client. And now I'm going to say that part is good to go. And now I'm coming down here to the payment schedule. So again, very similar to how the proposal legacy file works in the previous world. You're able to adjust payment schedule and invoice components here. So I can click into the amount, and let's say I want to do a custom amount of $1,000 for the retainer. The next two payments are divided equally. All of your due date options are going to be the same as they are today in your invoices and proposals. So nothing new here, nothing to throw you off. Okay, let's say this is going to be a smart date. And I'm going to do 1 month before the project date. Again, same as it would be in today's world. And then instead of a smart date here, I'm going to do actually the project date. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to click back in this settings bar. Click back again because I want to get to my pages, and I'm going to move on to the contract. So you might, that was one adjustment for me when I was learning flows, is I had to learn to click back a few times to get on to the next point that I needed to adjust. So a little bit of a pro tip there for you if you're someone who's still figuring out flows like I am. Now we're here in our contract, and same thing, it's still going to highlight the fields that we need to fill out. So these are good to go. They're auto-populating just like they do today with the information from the invoice we just built out. So that all looks good. I've got this one to fill out here. And the field value is going to pop up on the right menu now. Rather than popping up in the contract itself, the right-hand menu is your go-to for all of the things all the time. So always keep your eyes on that side of the page for things to change when you're clicking in, because that's more than likely where you're going to be adjusting. Okay, so that looks good. Everything else is ready to go. And then I've got my signature fields down here at the bottom. And I'm going to, again, back out and go to the payment page. Again, this is where I can control my payment settings, just like I was showing you guys in the master templates area. So this all looks good. Let's check out the final thank you page that I set up. That looks good too. So now I'm going to go on to sharing. Before I do this, I actually want to share with you guys, there's a new update that came into your accounts today. It has been very highly requested for our people who've been using Flows for a while. So two-factor authentication has always been turned on for Flows, which means that your clients will be required to enter a code before they can access the file, just for security purposes and making sure that everything is really locked down and secure for your information and for your client's information, and making sure that the right people are getting the right information from you. But we've actually given you the ability to toggle 2FA off for non-bookable files. So this file, you wouldn't be able to turn it off for because it's a bookable file. It has invoice and contract information. So that's obviously very critical, high security information that we want to protect for you. So that will always have 2FA applied to it. There's not going to be an option to toggle that off. But for things like a questionnaire document or just a proofing document, anywhere where you're just kind of sending information to them and there's no contract and no invoice, you will have the option to turn 2FA off. And where you would do that is up here at the gear icon. I do not have it in my account, but it went live in all of your accounts this morning. So you will have it when you click this gear icon. It will be one of the options. So you can have, you can adjust other things here too, like when the flow expires, if you want to have a redirect URL that your clients are routed to. And one of the other options you'll see here is the 2FA toggle, and you'll be able to toggle it on or off so long as it's a non-bookable file. Okay, so that's something to look forward to. So we're going to go ahead and share this out. And it's going to drop us off on a little bit of a different looking screen than what we might be familiar with today with kind of our legacy file experience. So we can pull in our email templates, same as we would today. So we're sending off our proposal. So more than likely the proposal, no, that's not true. 100% when you go to send a proposal legacy file today, the email template that populates is this proposal default email template. So if that's the one you want to send, that's the one you've edited to get to be the way you like it, you can easily click in. Same as today, you can personalize the email before you send it out. Oh, I'm still on caps lock. Don't you hate that? You can also create a shareable link, so you don't have to share it just in email. You could send a URL to them if you wanted. And then you've got your nice little preview over here of what it looks like on mobile or what it looks like on desktop to your clients. I have a very ugly logo in my branding experience that I forgot to update before our demo today. So that's why it looks like that. But yes, you can create a link to share with the project participants. Matt is so excited. So yeah, you can do that. So we'll go ahead and send this off, or we could have created our link. So we're going to go ahead and hit send. It's letting us know it's sending it out. And then we have this little tracker up at the top where it's showing us how we built it out. Then we shared it. And now this is where it's tracking the responses. So responses include the responses to their questions. Did they sign the contract? Did they make any payments? So this is where when you click into a flow, this is kind of like your dashboard to track your client's progress with this particular document and how they're going with it. So you can see if they, when you sent it, when they viewed it, in progress, one or more pages have been viewed or worked on, and then fully completed. So you've got the invoice snippet, you've got the contract snippet, and then you've got their responses down here to the questions. Oh wait, we didn't have questions in this one, but if you did, they would be here. I'm getting confused. So that's where you would be able to track all of that. And now if we back out, it'll take us back into our project where we just sent this. And of course, the activity feed will track that we've sent a flow. It'll track the email that you sent the flow with, just as your normal legacy file experience works today. Files will show us flows, anything here. And this is where we would click back in if we wanted to get back to that kind of dashboard that I was describing, where you can track all of the responses. You could also have clicked into this from the activity feed itself from that little flow block. So there's a couple different places you can get back to that. And then the payments tab is going to track the snippet of invoice from the flow component, where you can click into it from here too. Okay, and same thing, automatic job tracking. We know that we've sent this file, so HoneyBook is automatically tracking that in the pipeline, and you are good to go. Okay, now I'm going to get into, so you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat now. We've got 15 minutes left. I'm going to spend 5 of those minutes going through the service block. So let's go back to our little presentation here. So as I was mentioning during our demo, when you go to add a block into a flow, you'll see the option to add services. Just like we saw the invoice and the contract options, you will see the option to add services. And then when you click services, similar to when you go to add an invoice or a contract component to your flow today, it'll have all of your migrated files over here, which for services would obviously be your brochures. So like I said, this is coming, in fall. So something to look forward to. So things still could change. This is not like, don't screenshot this and hold us to it kind of a thing. It's a beta group, so things are always changing, but we're definitely going to have this live for you guys coming in the fall, and have hopefully the large majority of those brochure options migrated over for you guys to be able to choose from. So building out your service blocks and flows will be a really easy experience. And this is what it could look like. So in terms of customization, there's a ton of image options and text options and ways that compositions really for how you want to display things. So you'll notice when you go to add a service block, there's all these different formats essentially for how you want to display things. So whether it be this or pulling in kind of a migrated brochure option, that's available. So there's a lot of different options here for how you want to format it and display that to your clients, and then your clients would be able to go in and make selections. So this is more so from the client view, what it would look like on their side, depending on how you choose to display it to them. But they'll have almost like a shopping cart up here as they're making selections, going through the service block and selecting services. They'll see still the kind of requirements. You must select one based off of the settings that you put into the service block. And then there's always going to be the component to have them pay right away as well. So this is something that's new, similar to how brochures and proposals work today with service selection, but because flows have the ability to combine those steps, you'll have the ability to combine those things. So it's like basically a hands-off booking experience where, in the future of flows, we could think through maybe the option where someone would, fill out the contact form as a new inquiry. You have it automatically send a flow where you have your service selections available and they can pay right away. So if you've been waiting for HoneyBook to offer basically like an e-commerce solution, this is pretty dang close, because they'll inquire same day, they'll get this flow where they can make service selections, and in that same flow they'll have the ability to pay and even sign if you wanted them to. So without you even maybe realizing you got a new inquiry, maybe you're out to coffee with your mom or something and you're like getting this new booking experience. So that's like future down the road, where workflows and everything is working harmoniously with contracts and all that stuff. But that is, yes, game changer. Exactly. I love it. So this is our nice little preview of the service block coming soon. So something to look forward to there. Feel free to post any more questions that you guys have. I'm going to post a poll down there at the bottom of the page. If you guys wouldn't mind just taking that poll for me. It is literally going to take you 3 seconds. It's basically just rating this webinar on a scale of 1 to 10 to let us know if you liked this, if this was helpful. And what else you need. And I see Ashley posted a question. She says, I noticed you updated the flow template. Does it not auto save like the legacy files? Correct. It will not auto save. So you'll always want to make sure that you update it in the top right-hand corner. It shouldn't let you back out of it before putting up like a warning, like, are you sure you want to leave? Because you've made all these changes kind of a thing. So it'll always show you when you go to edit a flow, it'll always have that button in the top right that says update template, and that'll make sure that all of the work you did in the file or in the flow gets saved. Yes, good question. Okay, maybe there's another question here in our little question section. Nope, it was the same one. Okay, cool. Any other questions, everyone? We have 10 more minutes. Matt, I wish, I don't even have an exact date. So even if I was, I mean, I would have to just be guessing, and that wouldn't be fair to anyone. So, I mean, as you saw, it's live in my demo account for me to be able to play around with. So it's kind of in like this alpha stage of testing right now to make sure that we get it ready for you guys. But this is definitely the most advanced, complex, complicated, and you saw how complex Flows is, right? So this is the most complex aspect of it, in my opinion, that we've come out with so far in Flows. So we want to make sure it's perfect, and there are a lot of aspects to it. So we want to make sure that it's really ready to go before we push it to you guys. So whenever all those changes and bugs and testing are done is when you guys will have it. Awesome. Okay. Any other questions from anybody else? Don't forget to take that poll and let me know. If you guys don't have any questions, I hope I'm getting some 10s in there, because that's crazy. Let's see. Gina says, I would love to see how different types of businesses use this. Yeah. So I think honestly, your best example of that, Gina, would be in the Flows template gallery, because that's where some of our kind of super users have come to make example templates for you to work from. So these are not, I mean, they'll say who made them. So if they're made by HoneyBook, you know that our team put them together, but there are plenty of other business owners in here who have made different documents. Let me see if I can find some. But yeah, this is a great place. Of course, everything I'm clicking on is by HoneyBook, but if I go to the educators one, that's where we'll be able to find more. So the educators are like HoneyBook super users, and they all have their templates here. So if you wanted to see different examples of how different businesses are using it, like to see a proposal or a service guide, discovery call questionnaire for coaches, that's pretty specific. Dahlia even has her flow in here, which is awesome. Photo shoots, design approvals. So there's tons of options, consulting and VA, tons of options in here for you guys to explore. And like I said, the preview button will basically just pull up a window where you can kind of scroll through the flow and see what it's like before you actually like save the hard copy or whatever to your account. If you wanted to edit it, you could go straight from here and then save it, or you could do a quick save option where you would then need to go to your files, find this and start editing it. But if you wanted to edit it right from here and then save it to files, that's probably the easiest option for you to do, is just to start editing the template, and then you'll be able to actually go in and make the adjustments you need. And all of these templates are set up a little bit different. Like Lainey's, it looks like, let's see. Some of them will have like a big instruction thing at the top where it says like, thanks so much for using my template. Like, here are the different things you need to change on the different pages. And it'll have really clear instructions. And then it'll say like, delete this section before you start sending it to a client or something. But some of the templates are just like what they use for their business. And you can just go in and kind of plug and play and add your logo where you want to, or use their words and not change anything. And so it just kind of depends. So you can always come in here and kind of poke around and see the different elements. Any other questions? We still have 6 minutes here together if you guys need anything. Actually, I have some tools I can post for you guys. So I posted at the bottom of the page the link to join our beta Facebook group. If you guys are not already a part of that, I highly recommend it, because it is essentially like a forum where all of you beta users can come together to chat, and our HoneyBook team is also there, and they chime in and help with bugs or feedback or anything like that, and you guys can kind of go back and forth with each other, getting tips and tricks and things like that. So definitely check out the beta Facebook group at that link that I put at the bottom of the page. And then I'm also going to include link in the chat to our Beta Help videos on our YouTube channel there. We also have our Beta Help Center, which is all of our written articles with instructions. So these are really fabulous resources if you guys want to just save these as a note on your computer or something. These are really, really helpful when you're navigating, setting up flows and trying to figure things out. So I definitely recommend saving these if you can. And then the other thing that we do is Beta Office Hours. So this is with Lindsay. If you guys haven't gotten the chance to chat with her yet, she's part of our Beta kind of support CSM side. And she's wonderful. And every Thursday at 9 a.m., with the exception of tomorrow, she won't be doing them tomorrow, but because we have this webinar today. So we'll be picking up with those next week. And that is the link to actually join the Zoom meeting. So if you just want to add a recurring event to your calendar for every Thursday, just add that Zoom link as the meeting location, and then you'll be able to access it every Thursday whenever you need to. I think I've seen Tolu on one before. So you guys can come to those with questions if you are making progress on flows and you get hung up on something, or if you even just want to come and listen to questions that other people have. It's just a really casual forum where Lindsay's on there just chatting with you guys like a normal Zoom meeting. It's not a webinar like this, so you can actually ask your questions live, share your screen. She can share her screen, all that good stuff. So that's always a good option as well. I think that was everything. I already highlighted the 2FA. We already went through the services that are coming soon. We went through all your questions. Is that everything? Is everyone feeling satisfied? I can't believe it. That's awesome. Okay, guys. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I'll give you 4 minutes back. Awesome. This is I'm so glad to hear it. Thank you guys for spending a full hour while I just talked at you. I love it. I will send out the recording when we wrap up here today. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And please don't forget to take that poll.